Let's see how noble Kang Do-hyun really is. Do-hyun received the video at 2:14 a.m. He watched it once. His face didn't change. His hands didn't shake. He set the phone down on his desk with the careful precision of a man who knows that if he allows himself to feel what he's feeling, he will become something that can never be undone. Then he looked at June and said 3 words. Call everyone in. Within an hour, 47 men stood in the underground level of Kang Enterprises. These weren't corporate employees. These were the Shadow Army, the men and women who operated in the spaces between law and power, the ones whose loyalty was bought with blood and earned with years. Do-hyun stood before them. His voice was calm. His eyes were anything but. The Yoon Syndicate has taken someone from me. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. I want every safe house, every warehouse, every back alley operation they run turned inside out. I want Yoon Tae-suk's location within 3 hours. And I want the woman returned to me unharmed. Anyone who stands between me and that objective will not stand for long. He paused. Move. They moved. What happened over the next 4 hours would later be referred to in Seoul's underworld as the Night of the Kang. Do-hyun's forces hit 11 Yoon locations simultaneously. They dismantled operations that had taken years to build in a matter of minutes. They seized assets, captured lieutenants, and systematically tore through Tae-suk's empire with the surgical precision of a man who had been preparing for this war his entire life but had never had a reason personal enough to fight it. Do-hyun himself went to the location where Nyla was being held. He didn't send men ahead. He didn't wait for clearance. He walked through the front door of the abandoned warehouse with June at his side and a look on his face that made the 2 guards at the entrance drop their weapons without a word. He found her in the basement room, still zip-tied, still defiant, with a bruise forming on her left cheekbone where one of the guards had hit her for refusing to cry on camera. When he walked through the door, she looked up at him, and her composure finally cracked. Not into tears. Into relief so profound it looked like pain. Took you long enough, she whispered. He was on his knees in front of her in 2 strides, cutting the zip ties with a knife from his pocket, pulling her into his arms so hard she gasped. He held her head against his chest and pressed his lips to her hair, and his hands were shaking now, shaking so badly he couldn't hide it. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry. I should have. Don't. She pulled back and held his face. The bruise on her cheekbone made something murderous flash in his eyes, but she held him steady. Don't apologize for other people's cruelty. Just take me home. He carried her out of that building. She could have walked, but he carried her, and she let him because she understood that he needed to. Yoon Tae-suk was found by Do-hyun's men 2 hours later, trying to flee to Busan. He was brought to Do-hyun, who looked at the man who had dared to touch the only person in the world who mattered to him. You made a mistake, Do-hyun said. Tae-suk, bloodied and broken, spat on the floor. She's just a woman. There will be others. You're a fool for. Do-hyun hit him once. Just once. But it was enough. She's not just a woman, Do-hyun said, standing over him. She's the only reason I didn't burn your entire bloodline out of existence tonight. She asked me not to become a monster. So I'm going to honor that. You're going to leave Seoul. You're going to leave Korea. And if I ever hear your name again, if your shadow falls within 100 miles of her, there won't be enough of you left to identify. Tae-suk was escorted to the airport that morning. He never came back. But the fallout wasn't over. Seo Yuna, desperate and cornered now that her benefactor was gone, made one final play. She went to the media with photos of Nyla and Do-hyun together, along with fabricated stories painting Nyla as a gold digger, a foreign con artist who had seduced a vulnerable businessman. The articles hit the internet on a Thursday morning. Nyla saw them on her phone while she was getting ready for work. The comments were vicious. Racist. Cruel. Words she'd heard before in different languages but that cut the same way every time. She sat on the edge of her bed and read every single one because she believed in facing things head-on, even when they broke her heart. Do-hyun called her 17 times. She didn't answer. He showed up at her apartment at noon. She opened the door, and the look on her face nearly destroyed him. "They're calling me your pet," she said. "Your exotic plaything. They're saying I'm only with you for money. They're saying. I know what they're saying. And I'm going to." "What? What are you going to do, Do-hyun? Buy every media company in Korea? Threaten every journalist? This is what I was afraid of. This is why I said no in the first place." Her voice cracked. "I don't belong in your world. I've been pretending I could exist in it, but I can't. I'm a delivery driver. I'm a baker. I'm nobody. You are everything. That's not enough." She was crying now, and the sight of it was worse than any wound he'd ever received. Love isn't enough when the world is designed to crush people like me for daring to reach above my station. He stepped forward and took her hands. She tried to pull away, but he held firm. Not roughly. Never roughly. Just steadily. "Listen to me. I have spent my entire life surrounded by people who perform. They perform elegance. They perform loyalty. They perform love. And I have hated every second of it because I could always see through it. Every smile was a lie. Every touch was a transaction." He brought her hands to his lips. "And then you walked into my lobby and asked me for my ID. And for the first time, I was looking at something real. You are the only real thing in my life, Nyla. And I will fight the entire world to keep you. Not because you need me to fight for you. I know you can fight for yourself. But because you deserve someone who's willing to." She searched his eyes, looking for the lie, the performance, the mask. She found nothing but raw, terrified, absolute love. "I found Yuna," he said quietly. "The woman who leaked the photos. She's been working with my enemies. She did this to hurt me through you." He paused. "I've already contacted my legal team. Every fabricated article will be retracted with a public apology by morning. And Yuna will face charges for conspiracy, defamation, and her involvement in your kidnapping. Do-hyun. But that's not enough." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Nyla's eyes went wide. "I was going to wait. I had a plan. A proper plan. But I don't want to wait anymore. I've spent too many years in the dark, and you are my light, and I'm not letting anyone, not Yuna, not the media, not a single soul on this earth, make you feel like you are anything less than extraordinary." He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not a massive, ostentatious diamond designed to impress. It was a simple gold band with a small, perfect stone the color of warm honey. "It's a citron," he said. "The woman at the jewelry shop told me it represents joy and warmth and new beginnings. That's what you are to me. All of those things." He looked up at her from where he was now kneeling, this man who controlled empires, who commanded armies, who made the most powerful men in Seoul tremble, kneeling on the floor of a tiny apartment that smelled like vanilla and hope. "Marry me, Nyla. Not because I can give you the world, but because you already are mine." She stood there, tears streaming down her face, looking at this impossible man who had crashed into her carefully constructed life like a hurricane and rearranged every single thing she thought she knew about love and safety and belonging. She sank to her knees in front of him so they were eye to eye. "You're going to be a terrible husband," she said. "You work too much. You're way too intense. You bought an entire company just to get me back on your delivery route, which is actually insane. Is that a yes? You didn't let me finish." She put her hands on either side of his face. "You're going to be a terrible husband, and I'm going to love every single minute of it." She kissed him, and he slid the ring onto her finger, and somewhere in the city of Seoul, a delivery truck was running its route without its best driver, and an elderly bakery owner was telling every customer who walked in about how her Nyla was going to marry the most powerful man in Korea, and somewhere far away, Co Yuna was learning that the consequences of cruelty have a way of coming back with interest. 6 months later, Nyla stood in the soft morning light of her brand new pastry shop in Samcheongdong. It was small, warm, and exactly what she'd always dreamed of. The sign above the door read, Nyla's, in both English and Korean. Mrs. Cho had come out of retirement to help her run it. Do Hyun had offered to fund the entire thing. She had refused. She'd used her own savings, supplemented by a small business loan she'd applied for and gotten on her own merits. He had respected that. He had simply shown up on opening day with 47 of his men, all of whom ordered pastries and left reviews so glowing they bordered on absurd. He stood behind her now, his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder, watching the first customers trickle in. "Proud of you," he murmured against her ear. She leaned back into him. "You bought 17 croissants yesterday. You don't even like croissants." "I like your croissants." "You gave 12 of them to June. June likes croissants." She laughed, and the sound filled the shop like music, and Do Hyun held her tighter because he had learned that happiness was not something you could take for granted. It was something you held onto with both hands and protected with everything you had. He had spent his life surrounded by fake elegance, by manufactured beauty, by people who wore their worth on the outside and had nothing within. And then a woman in an oversized uniform had walked into his world and demanded his identification, and everything he thought he knew about love and weakness and strength had been rewritten. She was not elegant. She was something better. She was real. And in a world full of pretenders, real was the most extraordinary thing of all. Now if this story made your heart race, if it made you smile, cry, or scream at your screen, do me a huge favor and smash that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a story like this. Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have said yes to Do Hyun? And what kind of story do you want to hear next? I read every single comment, and your suggestions literally shape what comes next on this channel. Share this video with someone who needs a good love story today, and I'll see you in the next one.